Assalamu alaikum everyone. So as you guys already know, the May-June session has ended and many of you are on their way to continue with A2, right? And the transition between AS and A2 seems overwhelming. It seems as if A2 is going to be incredibly difficult, but in reality the case is that A2 is actually not difficult at all. The fact and the reasoning why I say this is because of the fact that A2 is simply just most of it is AS and has bonus syllabus added to it. The new things that you will face is a very different type of structured questions, usually a lot closer to paper 2. And the paper that I'm talking about right now is paper 4, that has a lot of a similarity to paper 2. But even in that scenario, you will not be facing as much of a similarity because of the fact that paper 4 is larger, right? It is 2 hours long and it has a majority of weightage for your entire paper. So scoring a good marks in paper 4 is extremely important, and knowing the fact that AS comes in A2 and a majority of the part of AS can come in A2 is a very important fact to know. So paper 4 is 100 marks. It is structured questions similar to P2, and it is 2 hours long and it has the majority of the weightage for your entire paper, that is about 38.5%. Another paper that you will be attempting in A2 is paper 5, or planning, analysis and evaluation, and this paper is a lot more related to P3, right? If you have done paper 3, then this paper is not going to be that difficult. It is just doing the practical but on a paper, right? It is just evaluating what you will do, using analysis in order to figure out why this data is unreliable or why this data is reliable, or what methodology that you could change in order to make this data more reliable and stuff like that. So the experience that you had gained in paper 3 is going to work out in paper 5 as well. The majority believes that paper 5 is actually more easy in comparison to other paper 5s for other science subjects like physics or biology. Paper 4, on the other hand, is not difficult, but the problem that students face is the overwhelming amount of questions that are present. There is going to be a lot of questions that are there. Approximately, it can reach up to 8 to 9 or even 11 questions in total. So it has a very large amount of questions that are present. So what happens is that a student can get exhausted. But the difference in AS and A2 is that in reality, the questions are not difficult. It's just that there is a large amount of syllabus that a student needs to cover, which makes the questions difficult, which makes the paper seem very overwhelming. But as long as you strengthen each of the topics as they are taught to you as you do the past papers, and make sure that you have clarified all of the concepts, and make sure that you are 110% sure of the numerical solutions and the methodologies in order to solve them, you will be able to ace paper 4, that I can guarantee. Another thing to note about paper 5 is that it is not necessarily going to be something that you may have studied in the syllabus. A lot of the times they can ask you about experiments, about methodologies that are out of syllabus, but obviously speaking, the examiner will provide you with enough information so that you can answer it by the knowledge that you already have according to that syllabus. All right, so the things that you need to know or recall from AS is generally everything. Generally speaking, what is usually recommended is to revise everything from AS when you come into A2. And even when you are in A2, it is generally advised for you to go over the most the rectification type parts and some conceptual understandings of ES one more time. The basic gist of it is something that I have summarized here. For organic chemistry, you will need to do everything. All right. For organic chemistry, every single concept is very important because every single condition is coming into A2 as well. The methodologies and the analysis and the organic paths that you need to take, or the mechanism that you need to create, all of that comes from AS as well. So A2 and AS in organic chemistry is very closely knit together. So you need to have, or you need to make sure that your AS organic chemistry is extremely strong. So After doing that, I will be providing some revision material for completing or revising AS if you are going to be beginning A2 soon, so you can go over the AS syllabus when you get into A2. Furthermore, in an organic chemistry, a lot of the things can come in, but not in every single understanding, right? Obviously speaking, the questions will not be entirely based on AS. The majority will be of A2, but what will happen is that the examiner can ask tidbits of AS, right? They could ask a couple of parts that is relating to AS, a couple of equations or a couple of reactions that you may have studied in AS, or a couple of observations or a couple of understandings that you may have studied in AS. That includes the reaction of, for example, phosphorus or phosphorus chloride with water, and the creation of acids or Al2O3 reacting with an alkali or an acid, and all of those types of things can be included. Or the types of structures that are present in organic chemistry or the inorganic compounds can also be asked in A2. So the basic gist or the basic understanding is that you need to revise all of the things that you will rectify. And if you have revised that, or if you have like a 70 to 80% understanding of that, then you can easily complete A2 without much of a problem. If we come on to physical chemistry has mostly conceptual stuff, so you don't need to really worry about it. There's not that much rectification part in it, right? Shapes, angles are still asked. It is very frequent for them to ask these types of things, and the same Vesper theory is applied here. So that is a conceptual understanding. It is not something that you just need to rectify. Obviously you need to remember the shapes that are related to the Vespers, so, or the Vesper theory, lone pairs and bond pair quantities, and so that is something that you need to keep in mind. And otherwise, Hess cycle or usage of E is equals to mc delta t, that is also very frequent in A2. Hess cycle or understanding of Hess cycle is going to be very recommended for you to have, because if you have a grip on Hess's cycle, then basically you have done energetics already. A2 energetics is very similar to AS. The only difference is that there's just a couple of new additions, or there are a couple of new enthalpies that you need to understand. That's the biggest difference between energetics of AS and A2. So if you have a grip on how to create Hess cycle, then you will have a grip on how to do A2 energetics as well. Obviously speaking, on this channel we'll go over everything, including how to create Hess cycle, the concept behind it, and how easy it is to make these Hess cycle, and how easy it is to manipulate them for your answers. Furthermore, understanding intermolecular forces is a very important thing, because this understanding helps you clear up a lot of the parts in A2. Because again, this is a very conceptual thing, and as it is a very conceptual thing, this can come into any part of A2. It can come into analysis, it can come into the physical part of chemistry, it can come into the organic part of the chemistry, it can come into the equilibria part of the chemistry, it can come into every single scenario. So knowing the intermolecular forces, the type of intermolecular forces that are present in specific molecules, or how they're present or why they're present, all that, those things can be very important. So knowing those things from AS is going to be very important. Kc and Kp, or constants of concentration and constants of pressure from equilibria, is asked, but it is not that frequent, because in A2 there are a lot more K constants that are there that you need to know about. So usually these things are not asked that frequently, but in some scenarios in the past papers of like a couple of years back, there has been instances of them asking these things. Obviously speaking, they are not as difficult or as complicated, because it is similar to P2. So knowing them is important. Like having a good revision of how they are made or how they are calculated is quite recommended. And the Boltzmann graphs is quite interesting as well, because this comes in reaction kinetics of A2. The reaction kinetics of A2 is a lot more detailed, but there has been again instances of them giving you a Boltzmann graph and you need to figure out something from it. So those are still situations that are possible. So knowing these general ideas will help you cover A2 syllabus without a problem. The more past papers you'll do, the more you'll realize about what you need to know and what you don't need to know. So that will give you a hint in that scenario as well. What I would personally recommend is, before starting A2, you need to go over AS syllabus, just like a quick revision of the entire syllabus, and then you can begin A2. And then you don't need to look at AS until and unless you face a question in the past papers that has something related to AS. And if it does, then you need to take that understanding, you need to revise it, and then you need to take a note of that hey, this was asked, then perhaps it will be important later on as well. So this would give you an idea about what things that you need to remember from AS continually. All right. Now, the method for preparation of A2 is again very similar to AS. It is not different. You need to look at the syllabus first and foremost. It has all the information that you need, all the information that was updated. So all the things that you don't need to do from the past papers, because a lot of the things has been changed over the years. And then look at the books and lectures. The latest, the more latest they are, the better it will be for you, because that will help you be closest to the syllabus and not waste times on things that are actually removed from the syllabus. So I would recommend, if you are have begun the syllabus, then you don't need to use the books necessarily, because reading the books and then looking at lectures and then looking at notes can take a lot of time. So it's just better that you can go over the lectures, the notes, and then the past papers. Otherwise, if you have a lot of time and if you are beginning for next year's May-June session already, since this May-June, then you have plenty of time and you can go over in a very detailed and a very conceptual manner by going over the book. So that will help you, go through all of that. Now, the main differences in A2 is that there is a lot of syllabus. All right, there is a lot of things to cover. That's the main gist of it. What happens is that as A2 is the year in which students also start to apply for universities, they get overwhelmed with entry tests or entry test preparations or university tests or applications for abroad or essays for abroad and all that stuff, and they are unable to manage A2 as well as they could have, and that's the reason why they're not able to perform in A2 as much or as well as they could have. That's the problem that A2 students face. Otherwise, again, A2, especially chemistry, A2 is not difficult. The only thing is that there's a lot of syllabus. Again, what I would say is that there is no specific topic that is extremely difficult. Obviously speaking, there are some topics that are very new, that are very odd, right? At first you will be very overwhelmed at their understandings, but after you get a grip on them, they will be very easy to understand, they will be very easy to go over the notes of and stuff like that. What you will face though, that I can guarantee you in every single subject, not necessarily in chemistry, is that the questions will be difficult. It's that the questions of some of the topics and some of the specific subtopics or some of the specific types of question that can come in the topics can be difficult. Like for example, A2's electrochemistry has a type of question that can come in that students face difficulty in. Obviously speaking, we'll go over that in this channel as well, so stay tuned. But those types of things are the things that you need to take note of, right? Again, you need to have confidence in yourself that you will be able to easily cover the syllabus, because I'm telling you, it is not hard, right? You can easily cover it if you have just the dedication. If you have confidence in yourself, if you have tawakkul, then you can easily cover the entire syllabus slowly but surely. But what you need to do is, obviously speaking, go over the past papers as much as possible. Even if you face problems in them, what I would personally recommend is, if you are not able to solve a question, leave it be for half an hour, for an hour, and so on. Come back to it, try to look at it, and if you cannot find the solution, and if you cannot understand why the solution is that solution, then try to search for it on the internet, ask a friend, ask a teacher, and try to get as much information about why this answer is and where the hell did this answer even come from. That will help you understand the root of how this question came to be, or how this answer came to be in reality. Alright, so A2 is not difficult. Again, time is the thing that students face is that it is time consuming and it is exhausting. That's the issue that mainly A2 students face. How to overcome this? Again, set a realistic goal on a daily basis. The more realistic it is, the better, because you will not be able to discourage yourself that, hey, I did not do this, I'm incapable of doing this, I'm being overwhelmed by chemistry, and chemistry is very difficult. That ideology and that understanding will only hurt you in the long run. You need to keep in mind that regret will not help you in the future. It will only slow you down, it will only take your time. The better thing and the most important thing that you can do is look ahead and try to basically move forwards. All right, if you didn't do something today, if you were lazy today, if you were taking a break from something today, then that doesn't mean that you cannot achieve things tomorrow. All right, if you didn't do something today, then you can do whatever you had to do today tomorrow, right? So again, set realistic goals that you can most definitely do. All right, if it is a small goal, like for example, I'm going to study for 30 minutes, I'm going to study for 1 hour at maximum in a day, right? Vacations are happening for May June students that are in schools, so you can make a realistic goal. The more realistic it is, the better, because if you make an unrealistic goal, what happens that a student can get only overwhelmed by the ideology that, hey, this is so much, I didn't do this, then I'll just do it tomorrow, and then this cycle continues and continues, and you are not able to do anything. The easier it is for you to do, the more you'll be able to make it a regularity, the more you'll be able to make it a hobby, and the more you'll be able to achieve it, and basically encourage yourself to do more and more and more, and hence upgrade your understandings and upgrade your speed in getting that understanding. Find the weaknesses early. This is an extremely important point. Obviously speaking, there is no specific idea that, hey, if chemistry is extremely easy, that doesn't mean that you will not face problems. All right, when you're learning to step by step, climb a staircase, you will obviously speaking trip on a couple of stair pieces, right? There is that understanding, there is that concept. So obviously speaking, when you're doing a couple of topics, you will face a couple of questions or a couple of understanding that you will not be able to do at first, and those things are very important, because if you are able to identify them early on, then you will be able to fix them early on, you'll be able to take note of them early on, and then when you are done with the syllabus, when you're over with the syllabus, when you're revising, that will give you an understanding, that will give you a list of things that you were weak at before, and then you can go over those weaknesses one more time, and then again, and then again, and then again, and this will basically reinforce that revision. It will reinforce your syllabus, it will reinforce your weaknesses. All right, that's the thing that you need to do. All right, and obviously speaking, the most important thing is that you refuse to be overwhelmed, you refuse to feel overwhelmed, you refuse to feel basically discouraged. All right, you have a lot to do, and you can easily do it if you have the mindset. All right, building the mindset is incredibly important. Furthermore, the content is quite similar to AS, just again a lot more. Physical chemistry has a lot of interesting chapters. Energetics, electrochemistry is the next. Electrochemistry specifically is a very interesting chapter and a very new chapter, and reaction kinetics has a lot of interesting things that a lot of the things that you have studied in organic chemistry of AS is going to be reinforced in reaction kinetics as well. And inorganic chemistry is not as much for group 2, but for transition elements it is huge, right? It is a lot. But again, students get afraid of transition elements even because it is so new, but in reality it is a very interesting topic. All right, trust me, you guys are going to enjoy transition elements in a very interesting way. It is not difficult to do. There's very textbook type of questions that can come in the paper, right? You guys will see how textbook it is, how like repeated type of questions that they give you, so you'll be able to do transition elements quite easily. The difference about organic chemistry of AS and A2 is that organic chemistry is very large, again because of the fact that everything that came from AS is going to be in A2 as well. That's the biggest problem with organic chemistry. There's another part that I didn't write here, but it is there, and that is analysis. Analysis includes some new understandings, but it is not as difficult as AS analysis or analytical chemistry, at least in my personal opinion. It doesn't have that much of a difficult curve to it, or that much of a guessing work to it as AS did. So that's something that you guys are gonna have an enjoyment in doing. Obviously speaking, not every person likes analysis. I personally, there are a couple of ideas about analysis or analytical chemistry that is overwhelming or weird, because the syllabus and the past papers are very confusing in that scenario for a lot of the students. So that's something that you need to take note of, and basically be careful when you're covering that part of the syllabus. But there's a lot of resources that you can use in order to make your analytical chemistry very strong. So inshallah, when we go over those scenarios and those sections, you guys are going to be well covered in those cases. The chapters to look out for are equilibria, electrochemistry, transition elements, and analytical chemistry. All right, equilibria has a lot of new things in it. Electrochemistry is very new from AS. It has a lot of new stuff. Transition elements and analytical chemistry is in the same boat. Otherwise, the other things are kind of similar. The reason why I did not necessarily include organic chemistry in this is because of the fact that organic chemistry is much closer to rectification than it is much closer to concept. There are a couple of things that are conceptual, but those understandings and those ideas are like a handful. Right, there's like a very few. There's not that much. The main thing that you need to understand is the conditions, the reagents, and all that stuff. it is organic chemistry after all. So there's a lot of rectification in that. But after you go over organic chemistry once, you will realize that it is not as difficult as you would have expected, because again it is very similar to AS. There's very few amounts of concepts, there's a lot more rectification to it. So if you are able to cover organic chemistry from the beginning and revise it consistently over the year, or over the months, you will be able to make organic chemistry so incredibly strong that you will not have any difficulty in covering them. So this is a basic idea of how to cover A2 chemistry, and inshallah best of luck to all of you. You guys will do incredible. Have confidence in yourself, and basically this A2 is going to be your final year. So basically what I'm saying is that you can ace this A2 exams and then move on to universities and build your careers. All right, assalamu alaikum, see you in the next lecture. Allah Hafiz.